Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. This is Stefan and I thank you so much for coming to my channel. It's been about a month since we last looked at this, my biggest aquarium, a 135 gallon freshwater display community tank. It sits in the dining room just around the corner from my fish room. And in a month, both a lot has happened and everything is status quo. I've got no problems, knock on wood. Let's do that right now. Dining room table. But she's a thing of beauty, and so far so good. But I have had some issues, and I have made routine changes. Nothing unorthodox. Nothing controversial. About once every month, I do a significant trim of the plants that are growing in here because that's a healthy, right way to do water gardening. This cryptocorn here can become an intense, thick forest in 1 or 2 months. That's what it would turn into, and you wouldn't be able to see the substrate through it, much less the fish like that Starby Coreodora or this bristlenose. They'd be hidden, lost, probably happy as hell. But I like to thin out my cryptocorn plants, and I take them to the LFS for trade, or I just give them to the proprietor as a token of my goodwill. And cryptocorns are pretty common. They're not worth a lot of money on the trade market. But those of you who sell plants probably know that. I have another cryptocorn forest. And by the way, these are very common, probably about 3 different species intermingled. And I forget the names of them, but I'm sure Wendetti, and then the bronze and green and red version, etc. You can tell by the leaves here that one is different than that one. But they all grow together and they don't compete. Well, all plants do compete for real estate and resources, but they will form that thick, dark, carpet-like low forest, which is appealing, but it is also problematic for more than just the sight lines. It doesn't allow water to circulate through the substrate so that the sump can do its best job possible. The reason why I don't have any junk on the ground here and why I never have to do gravel vacuuming ever, I've never done that, and I don't ever want to have to, is because a sump is pretty terrific if you let it do what it's supposed to do, and that is move water through the tank in the patterns in which I'm moving this camera, and it's blowing out from either side, and then the overflow is in the center, and all the filtration is below in these in this cabinet here. But if I didn't heavily trim these crypts, there could be and there would be sediment that starts to collect. And once sediment collects, you know, some people love that because it creates a mulm, and if you're breeding or have fry, that can be very useful. Well, that's Elmo, by the way. Some of you who know the channel know Elmo, and he doesn't like to be left alone. And although it's very unprofessional, I'm going to help him off this chair so he doesn't bark. Thank you, Elmo. He's wearing a diaper because he's 18 years old, and he will piddle with reckless abandon. So we do what we have to do with our live animals, and I keep a clear substrate despite having a heavily planted tank, I guess is a short way of saying everything that preceded it. There's some pogo stem and octopus here. These cuttings are from my other tank. It won't grow as well in this tank as it does in the tank that I get it from. It will grow taller and lankier, but I like having a different plant there. And then of course, jungle vallisneria. I think there's some leopard val in here too, although I'm not seeing it on this side anymore. I have pulled some out of here. And then there is a little bit of crypticorn balancea. I took a lot of that out. I will find you what that lovely plant looks like. It's more on this side. It's this beautiful sort of variegated, long, thin stems. A really neat alternative to vallisneria, actually. It's slow growing, but once it does get going, it can be pretty intense, and the rhizome is significant. It's like, you know, a big dark radish down under there, and it will send up new plants fairly readily. As a matter of fact, I can show you that right now. You see all these along here? These are little balancea. I know it's kind of mixed up with other crypts in the val, but below the substrate you can see how it creates runners along the stratified sand and subsoil and gravel. And this tank is 2 years old, so it's, you know, that's what happens. That's what I want to see happen, but it needs to be managed. I am not a fish keeper who leaves his tanks alone and let nature take its course. This is not a dirted tank. It's certainly not the definition of, say, father fish aquarium, because I do too much and I have too much tech for it to fairly and squarely be called such a thing, although it has a lot of elements that are in common with such tanks, including heavy plant growth, a deep sand bed, deep substrate I should say, but often that is sand. And generally a lot of livestock, maybe not this much. That in the center of those wonderful rays, almost like it architecture, right? It's just a monstrous sword plant. I forget the species, Echinodorus, but I'll show you. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that's all from that. And then there's the flowering stem there. Pretty cool, huh? I took the lids off the top of this tank just because I got tired of all these leaves pressing up against the glass lids and creating problems and blocking the light. And I don't mind having to do a little bit more water top-offs because of evaporation. I'm here a lot. I don't travel the way I used to. I'm happy to work on my fish tanks. Look at those dwarf neon rainbows. I mean, are you kidding me? Look at that color and look at that size. It's giving the Bosemani a run for its money. And in my view, you could make a case that in its subtlety and the nuance of its colors and the shimmer, that it's even more beautiful. There's something a bit more like a child's drawing with the Bosemani, almost improbable color scheme. They're awesome. That's the female, by the way, the duller one, and that's the male. Perfect representation of the species. I don't know what the origin, you know, the location, I should say, for these. There's a couple different varieties, and I can tell you where I got them if you hit me up, because there's a breeder here near Chicago, and he has some outstanding Bosemani which he offers. But look at those dwarf neon rainbows. Believe it or not, I got a bag of those at a swap from my friend at Primetime Aquatics. Inexpensive little juveniles. They, you know, I put them in here. They were the size of a peanut, basically, with none of this color. But none of them died, and look at them now. Is that him? The breeder? Is that me? Is that luck? all of the above. The opaline gourami, often seen sort of sitting at a Petco or a PetSmart, unloved, unadored. But don't sleep on that fish. It's a gentle giant, at least my two are. I got two of them. They swim together, school together, don't spawn, so they're probably both females. There they are, facing each other. One just gave you some lip. I've got some black mollies in here that were supposed to be, when they were teeny tiny fry, fish food, but some of them escaped the angelfish and rainbow fish, and now I've got black mollies. There's a gold dust pattern. Look at that, isn't that a cool fish? And then there's the regular leer tail, I believe. And then there's the standard fin. But all these are leer tails, which I'm glad, because this is my display and I want the most beautiful fish possible. There's a classic marble angel with the orange, glowing orange on top, a long fin. And I've got two other angelfish in here. Those cichlids don't bother the cardinal tetras, which this is fun. The cardinals hang out now on this side, all of them, 20, 30 of them. And then all the way on this side, we get my other small schooling fish, the Harlequin rasbora. So they each live in, it's like New York, right? There's downtown and up midtown and uptown. And sometimes nobody goes from one side to the other. They just love their territories and their neighborhoods, if you will. This is the prowling, but another gentle giant. This is what happens when you put a 2-inch or even smaller Siamese algae eater, or SAE. This is the reticulated version. Some say it's the best for eating algae. But whatever one you get, in the right conditions with time, and not even in the right conditions, they can get huge. I mean, that's the biggest fish in this aquarium. But it's a gentle giant, and yeah, it's a piggy. It eats a ton of the food I put in for the other fish, but I've got a ton of food. And you know, he did a great job, or she, cleaning the algae, the blackbeard algae, when I had that for a brief time. And I still see him going up and down those sword plant stems or the driftwood, along with all the plecostomus, which have dropped fry. I've got baby plecos, and this the farawalla has spawned. I see small ones of that, and whiptails. There's an Adolphus or Adolphi corridora. Some say it could be not that species, but a similar one. That's how I bought them, and I think I got some of them from Prime Time as well. They used to be more money than they are now. Really cool little corridora. I've got the classic Aeneas, the bronze, and some Venezuelan, and you saw the stare-by before, and those are getting to be breeding size, chunky and big. I see the fins of one in back there. There, you see the iconic color scheme even through all that. The bristlenose, I don't put caves in here. And by the way, these are Bolivian rams. And while those two are down and having a little scuffle with that black molly, they do fine in here. I've got two pairs. Maybe those two are feeling in the mood. I don't know what this black molly's doing. Ooh, rare aggression. And from a fish you wouldn't expect it from, so I don't know. There's two of the catfish. So these caves under here are where the coolie loaches, the amano shrimp, and they reside in there and come out when the food comes out or at night. And I see them, obviously to avoid all the street traffic up here between downtown and uptown. Those sorts of more vulnerable creatures reside within the network of this island hardscape. And I used to try to stick some anubias in there, you know, to fill out the plants, but the plecos and whatever else would just push it out. And they wanted those caves for all the reasons I just said, and they made babies in those caves. And now if I tried to block them, it would probably be, they would just push it out again. And if I was successful, it would be counterproductive for these creatures. And to have as many as I do in here, there's a ram probably from the other pair. That's the other pair, 1 and 2. They're not as beautiful as German blue rams. They're just not. They're sort of similar, but they don't have as much of the striking contrast in their colors. But as they get older, you get the long fins and the pink hues. And I'll tell you what, they live longer than German ram. Look at that firewall, look at that tail. When people discover that in my tank, they freak out. What the hell is that? I can't believe something like that exists in rivers anywhere, you know. Has such a deep sea, deep ocean, saltwater vibe, such an oddball. And I mean that in the most flattering sense, the way they do on fish sites that sell, you know, they have the oddball section. Well, don't get any odder than that. So cool. And no one F's with that long filamentous tail. These angelfish don't bother it. They've got their own long filamentous tails. Look at those two. There's something, you know, when you go around the horn with all the different color schemes of angelfish, I kind of come back to just the classics. The silver, the striped, the scalare, you know, which is really all euphemisms for the same thing. The classic striped silver angelfish, like this guy. That's just the standard fin. So there's nothing remarkable about this fish, but that is what is remarkable about this fish. It's timeless. That's the word I'm looking for. And that's why it's iconic. Yeah, the long fins, you know, it's my display tank. You know why they're being a little nippy? Because they see me filming and they could use another bite to eat. And they're starting to get frustrated that I'm talking to you instead of feeding them. So there's the standard fin compared to the double veal tail. And, you know, obviously this is the one that's gonna win the beauty contests, or his cousin there. I mean, look at how beautiful those two are. Sometimes angels clean leaves like you just saw when they're getting ready to spawn, but that would be a terrible place to do it. I have had my angelfish lay eggs up against the glass here, and believe it or not, on my flipper algae eater, on the inside hard plastic side, you know, nothing's ever come of those eggs. I usually wake up and they're all gone. Millions of things that will eat it. Before I forget, and this was, here we are at over 15 minutes in, and now I have the reason I picked up the camera. This mid-ground plant, those are all the tops of Hygrophila coriambosa, or, you know, hygro willow. A really, you know, another example of nothing special, but kind of classic aquatic plant. These are just the tops. Every month they go all the way up to the top of the water, and they will start breaching the surface, and I would let them, but I need to clear real estate for all these rainbows and cichlids. And there's a gorgeous veal tail molly, a red one that just went behind. But these fish need swimming space. The teacup size millennium rainbows. Look at those monsters. So cool, so beautiful. They're cartoonish. When my kids were young, when they would draw like fish for, you know, a Father's Day card or something, their fish always looked like rainbow fish. They tried to make them cute somehow, fairy tale-ish, and rainbow fish in their own wonderfully clumsy way capture that vibe completely. There's Bucephalandra in here to the lower right. Various sword plants, that Aquarium bosa, Vallisneria. I've got frog bit and water lettuce up top. I take handfuls of that out every time I do a water change, which is once a week. I do a 40% water change on this aquarium, and I change the filter floss in the sump. And then about every 6 months, I'll do a deeper clean. And then I have yet to do a complete 100% total clean of the sump. You know what? Before we go, just give you a peek. Because sumps are the aquarium under the aquarium. There's the working part, that's an auto top off. And there's the various sponges from porous to fine. And then the biomedia, tons of it down there, different kinds, biohome, matrix. But the pothos growing out of a basket in there that has lava rocks and moss, and tons of pothos, and that's water spray reaching the surface there. And all those roots is just another chamber of filtration. And by the way, it's a great place to put an ornery fish, or to raise your shrimp populations. I see a molly in there somehow. It must have came in through the overflow. Black mollies, by the way, are extraordinarily good algae eaters, so he's happy down there. And just for my opinion, is if you can handle black mollies, they're as good an algae eater as an Autocinclus, and maybe better because they're bigger. And they are ravenous for it. Top 5, maybe top 3 algae eater you can put in your aquarium. So it's 135 gallons, but this is about what, 60 gallons? So we're really looking at almost 200 gallons of water. And you do have to add that all up when you're making certain calculations. But that's a big footprint, and because I put a lot of effort into keeping things status quo, I'm able to have what I don't need anyone to comment to tell me that it's overpopulated, but it's overpopulated the way Manhattan is. And if you take a walk in the West Village on a summer night, just nothing more awesome. And that's a lot of people and a lot of activity and a lot of nooks and crannies and cool, fun things to explore. And that's exactly the right metaphor for an aquarium like this, or maybe yours. Anyway, everybody, thank you for riding with me on this little video journey. As always, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully. I'll see you next time. Ciao for now.